Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 6, Episode 8 of FX's Snowfall, entitled Ballad of the Bear. I think this title is called Ballad of the Bear because this episode revolves around Gustavo's path to where he ended up. He takes a slight diversion here in this episode, and for starters, for those of you who may not know or remember, Gustavo was a luchador wrestler. This was how we met him in the pilot in Season 1, Episode 1, and that's also the significance of the mask that he gives his nephews in this episode as well. He was called El Oso, which is Spanish for the bear, and that's also why Franklin calls him Oso all the time. That's how he knows him, is Oso the wrestling bear. And that's why I think this episode is called The Ballad of the Bear, because it's about him, and it's about his path to where he ends up, where I think he's supposed to be by the end of this episode, but he takes a different path, and that's the focus here. From Louis and Franklin's perspective, everything went as planned. Just Gustavo showed up a little bit late to the warehouse, but they don't know that Gustavo's path took a pretty interesting detour, and I think that's probably also why the focus of the episode title is on Gustavo. Now, while this episode was largely uneventful, I'd say it was interesting to watch a plan unfold, particularly when you don't already know how the plan's supposed to go, at least not completely. Most of the time we know what's supposed to happen in a plan, and then we just watch it go wrong. We didn't know what Franklin and Louis and Gustavo had planned, so let's talk about that. There's two plans at play in this episode, actually. There's the plan that we already know about, the first one, which was for Gustavo to pick up a drug shipment, then have it at the warehouse along with Teddy. And if you remember a few episodes back, I even talked in one of my videos about the DEA, KGB, and Franklin all arriving at the warehouse at the time of this, drug shipment arrival, all there to get Teddy. And I even proposed like, oh, that's probably how Teddy's going to escape, because I thought that at the time, I thought this meeting that we saw in this episode was going to be in the next episode, which would have been like, we'll say episode 5. And I thought, oh, that's too early for Teddy to be caught or dead or whatever, so he'll probably escape in all the confusion. That was my hypothesis. But we finally reached that point where the drugs are supposed to be hitting the warehouse. I feel like it's been 2 days from now for a few episodes. But we get there in this episode, and that plan went into motion. So the DEA sent the female agent. I'm sorry, I don't know her name. I don't even know. They barely even given the DEA agent's name. I don't even know the guy's name. Like, I don't think they've said his name, the guy who's been on the show before. I don't even think they've said his name that much this season. But anyway, he sends a female DEA agent along with Gustavo to the drug pickup, because at this point, he doesn't trust them. And to be fair, Gustavo has been pretty suspicious acting, especially coming from the DEA guy's perspective. I could see him being kind of like, I don't know if I trust this guy. Gustavo's behavior has been very erratic. But for what it's worth, though, at the drug deal, I thought Gustavo behaved pretty normally. Like, he didn't seem out out of the norm to me. So the female agent's characterization of him, of being, erratic and unpredictable, and he even said I was a DEA agent. Like, not only did I find that to be inaccurate, but now once you've seen the episode and you look back on that moment is what caused the whole plan to go awry in the first place. So her, I think, mischaracterizing Gustavo at that time is what almost completely fucked Franklin. If she hadn't said anything, that could have been way worse. Or if what happened hadn't happened, it could have been way worse. But it ended up, it was gonna be way worse because of her mischaracterizing him. But because of that, the man DEA agent, whose name I don't know, he has her check in on Gustavo's family. She learns that they're gone, which we already knew because he handed the money and the passports he got from Franklin that I kind of assumed were for him, him being Gustavo. He handed that over to his family. So, and he told them, time for you guys to get the fuck out of here. I don't know why I always thought they were going to leave like regular and he was the one that was going to leave. But that's when you're on the run, you think like, I'm getting the money and the passports, I'm leaving, going overseas. So I guess that kind of was like a bait and switch. We kind of assumed that the guy who's going to be on the run is the one who's taking the money and the passports. And and for me, it was learning in this episode, Gustavo don't plan on going nowhere. He's sending them off to be safe. And she said, and looking back in the last episode where she's like, you can't know where we're going, that makes that even heavier. Like, I don't know. I didn't put that together until this episode. Maybe you guys knew that ahead of time, but I always assumed Gustavo was taking the money and the passports and leaving. So I'm going to come back to this, but basically an essential part of Franklin and Louis' plan was that Gustavo would arrive at the warehouse with the drugs on time. So I'm going to come back to the female DEA agent and how she screwed over Gustavo in a moment. The other plan at play here was Franklin and Louis, which we kind of watch unfold as it happens. So Louis tells Teddy that Franklin asked her for money at Jerome's repast and that she agreed to give it to him. And then she says the next time, when me and him meet for me to give him that money, I'll have some of my guys take him. So Teddy gives her a location to bring Franklin and says she can bring one person, which ultimately ends up being Scully. After this phone call, we zoom out to reveal that Franklin and Gustavo are in the room at the same time. And Franklin says to Gustavo that if Teddy shows up and Gustavo's not there, Franklin's a dead man. And Gustavo says, so am I, in response. And we don't fully understand this exchange at the time, but in retrospect, this is a really cool little bit of dialogue here. Because, so here's why. Franklin knows Teddy's going to have him at the warehouse. So again, this is coming from, now that I've seen the whole episode, I know Franklin knows Teddy's going to have him at the warehouse. So if Gustavo shows up late or not at all, Franklin knows Teddy's going to kill him. Gustavo's response of so am I is meant a bit differently, like not like, oh, I'm gonna be a dead man too if I don't show up. It's more of him saying that if he doesn't show up, that means he's already dead. Like, so am I. It means I'm a dead man too, because like if I don't show up, that means I'm literally a dead man because I'm dead. And I didn't look at it that way when he said it, and I didn't understand the line at the time. I'm like, what is he talking about? But now that I look at it in retrospect, that's a pretty cool exchange when you look back on it. So they end up roughing up Franklin to make it look real, and Louis unloads on Franklin for real in this scene, and it was good, but it loses something because Louis hits being for real. That's a very surface level kind of move. Like, Franklin knows she's mad and knows the hits are going to be for real. We know that she's mad, the audience, and that the hits are going to be for real. So when you have her hit him and then start, hitting on him, like pounding on him kind of at the end and screaming, it's kind of like, well, we knew this was coming, So it's like, that didn't work as well to me. I feel like that was the predictable thing, and if you wanted that episode to really hit, maybe you have her start saying some stuff like "you broke my heart" or something like that, or maybe you have him open up while he's being beaten, say "I'm sorry, Auntie," something. I don't know, whatever. But like, I feel like you have if you have one of them open up verbally, maybe in that scene, maybe that scene works a little bit better. But like I said, it didn't go beyond what I already expected to happen anyway. So that scene, it was what it was. So Teddy changes up the deal and says that they got to drop Franklin at the location still, but they got to leave. Like, you drop him, you leave, I'll come scoop him up later. And they do that, and Teddy does come, and he does retrieve Franklin, and he takes him back to the warehouse. They drew that out a little bit, and it ended up going like without issue. It's just that I don't know. So where the plan goes awry, like I said, I was going to come back to the DEA lady. After she found out Gustavo's family was gone, that was the last straw in them trusting him. So they arrest him all together right as he's like on the phone with Teddy. And that means Gustavo would have never made it to the warehouse, and Teddy would have gotten some heavy duty torturing in on Franklin because he had acid, he had syringes. I saw a lie, like he was about to go medieval on Franklin's ass. Very Pulp Fiction. But predictably though, very few people had considered Ruben. I certainly had. Like when they arrested him, I was like, oh, Ruben gonna save him, because they had shown Ruben watching him like right before that, and I'm like, yeah, like after he leaves from his family's house. They see, like, Ruben's watching. He, like, looks down when the car drives by. So I'm like, oh, Ruben's watching him. I'm like, Ruben's going to come save him because he's going to see him get taken. So that's what happens. Ruben, that's the wild card that wasn't at play here. Like I said, her mischaracterizing Gustavo resulted in Gustavo being arrested. He would have never made it to the warehouse. Franklin would be dead. And everything would essentially be over. All because she mischaracterized him if it wasn't for the fact that Ruben was watching. Ruben comes and quote-unquote saves the day. But of note, he kills the female cop. But we don't know about the other two male ones. Like, they could still be alive. I don't know if they died in a car accident. Gustavo didn't, so why would I believe they did? They all had their seatbelts on, it looked like. I don't know, but they may or may not be alive. He retrieves Gustavo. He takes Gustavo to the warehouse. A fight ensues. Gustavo beats the shit out of Ruben. I still don't know if Ruben's dead or not. He slammed his head on the ground. He could be knocked out. His skull could be cracked, and he could be dead. I don't know. Ruben alive, dead, doesn't matter. Because even if Ruben is alive, he's gonna wake up to a really shitty situation. So it doesn't really matter. But yeah, now and that's where we end up. That's where we end the episode. Ruben is knocked out or dead. Gustavo saves Franklin right before he dies because he actually kicked the can out from under, hanging Franklin's feet, almost killing him. He cuts Franklin down, and now Franklin and Gustavo have a subdued Teddy in their possession. And that's how we end this episode with 2 more left to go. So real quick before I close out, this has been a fast one. Like I said, not a lot happened in this one. There are a couple of quick thoughts that I want to get out real quick. So the scene at Jerome's repast. So we watch Gustavo go from his car all the way to the backyard. And if you been to something like that at a house like that, you know there's people out front. He moves through the crowd out front. He moves through the house into the backyard. That's where, of course, everybody really gonna be at. Like the people who really comfortable there, they gonna be in the backyard. That's where everyone's at. And he moves past Leon and Scully having a conversation, and Leon's crying, and Scully saying he forgives him. And I'm like, yo, like, they should have given that way more attention. Like, I thought that was really shitty how, like, they treated what was a monumentally powerful moment, or what should have been, could have been a monumentally powerful moment, and they treated it like an afterthought, like something like, here's the camera, this is happening while we just move the camera right past it, nothing to see there. Like, they treated a man forgiving someone else for killing his child. They treated it like he forgave him for, like, farting under the fucking sheets. And, like, that was, like, really shitty to me. Like, that should have been given way more attention. I feel like people aren't even gonna realize that's what was happening. Like, holy shit. Leon's crying over what he did, and Scully's forgiving him for it. This is some next level shit, especially within the context of this show and this lifestyle. And the show just fucking pans right past it, like, whatever the fuck, who cares? That was crazy to me. I didn't even realize it at first. I'm like, what Leon crying about? Oh shit! I'm like, did Scully say he forgives him? Like, and he's like, you gotta let that shit go. Like, he's like, you telling the person that killed his family, you gotta let it go. Like, that's some heavy shit, dog. I can't believe how they treated that moment. Like, what the fuck, dog? Like, I'm telling you, some of y'all are watching this like, yo, I didn't even realize that was what was happening. Yes, that's what the fuck was happening. And they treated it like that. Crazy. I laughed when Franklin said that Gustavo was less nervous when they was with the tiger, because that almost felt like a nod to me. Because I shit on that tiger fucking shit so hard in my video for the episode, and in various places on the internet I appeared in the following week. I shit on that episode. I shit on that episode at the end of the season. Like, I hated the tiger thing. And it almost felt like Franklin was fucking with me specifically. Like, yeah, you just mentioned the tiger shit. I felt like he winked in the camera at me. So I thought that was funny. Like, yo, fuck you, Damson. Fuck that goddamn tiger shit, man. That's how I felt in the moment. And then lastly, Parissa. The worst woman in the world. One of the all-time worst characters of all time. That's redundant. Why did I say that? Demands a marriage proposal. Okay, one, just demanding a marriage proposal up front is wild. But she demands it with a ring that most women would be too flattered to even accept. And she puts it as a goddamn condition. Like, I want you to propose to me with your mother's ring. Most women would be like, I can't take this. Parissa said, give me this. Fuck Parissa. I will see you guys next week for the penultimate episode of this wonderful season and great show. And until then, peace.